Professor Krell moved across the classroom on his 6 tentacle-like limbs. His blue skin shimmered under the bright lights as he prepared the display for today's lesson. He was excited. Today's class was special. A lecture on Category 5 Deathworlds, the most dangerous planets known in the galaxy. The classroom slowly filled with students of different alien species. Some had scales, others had fur. A few were made of crystal or looked like walking plants. They chatted among themselves while finding their seats, creating a mix of clicks, whistles, and words. In the back row sat Olivia Martinez. She was the only human in the class. She kept to herself, quietly reviewing notes on her tablet. The other students left empty seats on both sides of her. It had been this way since humans joined the Galactic Confederation 3 years ago. Most aliens still viewed humans with fear or doubt. "Attention, students," Professor Krell called out. His voice translator gave his words a slight buzz. "Today we study the most feared environments in our known universe, Category 5 Deathworlds." The room fell silent. Even the most talkative students focused on the professor. "Only 11 planets have earned this classification," Krell continued. "These worlds represent the extreme limits of what life can endure." He tapped a control panel with one tentacle. A holographic image appeared in the center of the room, a massive creature with razor-sharp claws and multiple rows of teeth. "This is a Kaldorian slasher," he explained. "It hunts in packs and can survive both extreme heat and cold. Its home. Planet has gravity twice the galactic standard and radiation levels that would kill most of us in minutes." The students gasped. A NIMBY student, a floating cloud-like being, drifted higher in fear. "The slasher has evolved to detect energy signatures from protective suits," Krell continued. "It specifically targets explorers and researchers." Olivia watched calmly, occasionally making notes. Unlike her classmates, she showed no signs of fear or disgust. This didn't go unnoticed. Zindar, a tall alien with green scales and 4 arms, raised his upper right hand. His species, the Altarians, were known for their pride and sense of superiority. "Yes, Zindar," Professor Krell acknowledged. "I notice our human classmate seems unimpressed," Zindar said, his forked tongue flicking between words. "Perhaps she doesn't understand the severity of what we're discussing." All eyes turned to Olivia. She looked up from her tablet, face calm. "I understand perfectly," she replied. "I'm just not particularly alarmed by this specimen." A wave of murmurs spread through the class. Professor Krell's large eyes blinked rapidly in surprise. "This is one of the deadliest creatures in the known galaxy, Cadet Martinez," he said. "It has killed dozens of researchers and explorers." Olivia nodded respectfully. "I don't doubt its danger, Professor. It's just that on Earth, we have creatures with similar hunting patterns." Zindar laughed, a harsh sound that made several students jump. "Earth is only a Category 4 Deathworld. Your planet doesn't compare to these extreme environments." "Classifications can be misleading," Olivia said simply. Professor Krell, ever the scientist, found his curiosity piqued. "Please explain your perspective, Cadet Martinez." Olivia stood up. All 43 students watched as she walked to the front of the room. She was shorter than most of them, with no obvious natural weapons, no claws, fangs, or armor. Yet something about her confident movement made some students lean away. The Confederation classification system puts heavy emphasis on gravity, radiation, and atmospheric composition, she explained. It places less value on biodiversity and evolutionary pressure. She gestured to the hologram of the slasher. This creature evolved in an environment with few competing predators. It had one main food source and developed specific adaptations to hunt it efficiently. Professor Krell nodded. "That's correct. The simplicity of Kaldorian ecosystems is well documented. On Earth," Olivia continued, We have millions of species competing in thousands of ecological niches. Our planet has deserts, Arctic regions, deep oceans, high mountains, and dense forests. Life has adapted to all of them. She tapped the display controls, asking permission with a glance at the professor. He nodded, tentacles curling with interest. The hologram changed to show an earth jellyfish, nearly transparent in blue water. This is a box jellyfish, Olivia explained. It has no brain, yet its venom can kill a human in minutes. We have no effective antidote. She changed the image again. A small bear-like creature appeared. This is a tardigrade, microscopic in size. It can survive in the vacuum of space, withstand radiation that would kill any Kaldorian, and live without water for decades. Another tap showed a honey badger fighting a snake. This small mammal regularly fights venomous snakes and can survive bites that would kill creatures 10 times its size. It's known for attacking enemies many times larger than itself, including predators your classification system would place in Category 4. For 20 minutes, Olivia showed one Earth creature after another. With each example, the classroom grew quieter. Some students took rapid notes. Others looked increasingly uncomfortable. But the true reason Earth is dangerous isn't any single creature, Olivia concluded. It's the competitive pressure of our ecosystem. On Earth, everything is either hunting or being hunted, often both at the same time. Professor Krell studied her with new interest. And humans evolved in this environment? Olivia nodded. We did. Without natural weapons like claws or armor. Without exceptional strength or speed. We were prey animals for most of our evolutionary history. Then how did you survive? Asked a small, fuzzy student near the front. We adapted, Olivia said simply. We learned. We observed predators and studied their weaknesses. We created tools. We worked together. Eventually, we became the apex predators ourselves. The classroom was completely silent now. Professor Krell floated back to his teaching. Platform, his tentacles moving in the pattern that his species used to express deep thought. Fascinating perspective, Cadet Martinez, he said finally. I believe this warrants further discussion. For next class, everyone will research a different Earth species and prepare a short analysis of its survival adaptations. As Olivia returned to her seat, she noticed the empty chairs beside her were no longer empty. 2 students had moved closer, their expressions showing a mix of fear and curiosity. Zindar watched from across the room, his scaled skin flushed with a darker green. He had meant to embarrass the human. Instead, he had given her a chance to reveal something that everyone in the room now understood. The lesson was supposed to be about monsters from distant, deadly worlds. But the real Deathworld monster had been sitting among them all along. Olivia smiled at her new neighbors and opened her tablet to a new page. Class was just beginning. Word spread quickly through the academy about Olivia's unusual lecture. By the next morning, students from other classes approached her in the dining hall. Some wanted to hear more about Earth creatures. Others simply wanted to look at the human, who had impressed Professor Krell. Olivia sat with her new neighbors from class, Mira, a furry being with 6 eyes, and Dex, who resembled a walking plant. They had been the first to overcome their fear of the human. Is it true Earth has tiny organisms that live inside other creatures? Myra asked, her purple fur rippling with curiosity. Olivia nodded while eating her specially prepared human food. We call them parasites. Some are harmful, but others help their hosts. Our bodies contain trillions of bacteria that help us digest food. Dex's leaf-like appendages shivered. You carry other life forms inside you? Right now? Yes, Olivia said. Humans are never truly alone. We're walking ecosystems. More students gathered around their table, asking questions about Earth. For the first time since coming to the academy, Olivia felt accepted rather than feared. Then Zindar appeared. The tall, scaled Altarian pushed through the crowd, his arms crossed over his chest. "Very clever performance yesterday, human," he said. His voice carried the clicking accent of his species. "But anyone can talk about dangerous animals. It doesn't prove Earth deserves respect in the Confederation." The gathered students fell silent. Confrontations were rare at the academy, and Zindar's family had political connections. Olivia looked up calmly. "I wasn't trying to prove anything, Zindar. I was just sharing information." "Information without context," Zindar countered. "Your planet may have scary creatures, but the real measure of a world is how its people perform under pressure. Humans have never faced a true crisis by Confederation standards." Before Olivia could respond, an announcement echoed through the dining hall. "All xenobiology students report to Lecture Hall 7 immediately. Professor Krell has an important announcement." Students hurried toward the lecture hall, temporarily forgetting the confrontation. Zindar gave Olivia one last dismissive look before joining the crowd. Mira walked beside Olivia. "What do you think the professor wants?" "No idea," Olivia replied. "But he seemed very interested in Earth biology yesterday. Maybe it's related." When they reached the lecture hall, Professor Krell was already there. His blue tentacles moved in patterns of excitement. "Students," he began once everyone was seated, "I have extraordinary news. The Academy Board has approved my request for a special field trip." Excited murmurs filled the room. Field trips were rare treats at the Academy, especially for first year. "Students, we have been granted access to the Containment Research Facility orbiting Proxima 3, Krell continued. "There, we will observe actual specimens from a Category 3 Deathworld in a controlled environment." The excitement turned to nervous. Whispers. Looking at dangerous creatures through a hologram was one thing. Seeing them in person was quite another. "Isn't that dangerous?" asked a crystal-bodied student near the front. "The facility has multiple safety systems," Professor Krell assured them. "We will observe from behind energy shields and reinforced viewing areas. There is no risk to students." He tapped a control panel, displaying a rotating image of a massive space station. The CRF houses hundreds of specimens from various worlds. For safety reasons, only 20 students can participate. Those interested must submit an application by tomorrow morning. As students left the hall buzzing with excitement, Zindar blocked Olivia's path. "I suppose you'll apply, human? Eager to see some real monsters instead of your Earth pets?" Olivia shrugged. "I'm considering it. It sounds educational." "Good," Zindar said with a smile that showed too many teeth. "Because I'm applying too. It will be interesting to see how a Deathworlder reacts when faced with truly dangerous life forms." 2 days later, the selection results were posted. Both Olivia and Zindar had been chosen, along with 18 other students from various species. Professor Krell called a meeting to prepare them for the trip. "The journey to Proxima 3 takes 6 hours by Academy transport," he explained. "Once there, we will spend 8 hours at the facility before returning. You must follow all safety protocols without exception." He distributed tablets containing information about the facility and the creatures they would observe. "Our primary focus will be Section 7, which houses specimens from Rigel Prime," Krell continued. "This includes the Rigelian acid crawler and the bubble moss colony." Olivia studied the images on her tablet. The acid crawler looked like a cross between an earth centipede and a slug, with a body that produced corrosive slime. The bubble moss was a plant-like organism that trapped and dissolved small animals in transparent sacs. These organisms evolved in an environment with high acidity and atmospheric pressure, she read aloud. "Interesting adaptation strategy." Zindar, sitting nearby, scoffed. "Impressed, human? The acid crawler can dissolve metal in seconds." We have similar creatures on Earth, Olivia replied. Not as large, but with comparable digestive acids. Before Zindar could respond, Professor Krell called for attention. One final note, he said. The facility director, Dr. Vex, has requested that our human student provide a short presentation comparing Earth organisms to those we will observe. All eyes turned to Olivia. Zindar's scales darkened with anger. This was your plan all along. He hissed quietly. Turn our educational trip into a showcase for humans. I didn't ask for this, Olivia whispered back. Students will board the transport at 0600 tomorrow, Professor Krell concluded. Bring only approved items. No food, no personal electronics beyond Academy tablets, and absolutely no sample collection equipment. As they left the meeting, Myra hurried to catch up with Olivia. Are you nervous about giving a presentation? She asked. Olivia nodded. A little, but mostly I'm excited to see the facility. We don't have anything like it on Earth yet. What about Zindar? He seems determined to make you look bad. Olivia glanced over her shoulder at the Altarian, who was talking with a group of his friends. They kept looking her way and laughing. Zindar isn't my problem, she said finally. But I'm more concerned about why Professor Krell is so interested in Earth biology. There's something he's not telling us about this trip. That night, Olivia struggled to sleep. She kept thinking about the creatures they would see tomorrow. Not because they frightened her, but because she couldn't shake the feeling that this trip was about more than education. Professor Krell had been too excited, too insistent that she specifically attend. Something else was happening, and Olivia had a feeling she was about to find out what it was. The Academy transport ship hummed quietly as it approached the Containment research facility. Through the viewing windows, Olivia could see the massive station. It looked like a giant wheel floating in space. The center hub connected to 8 long arms, each housing different research sections. We will dock in 10 minutes, announced the pilot. Please gather your approved items and prepare for arrival procedures. Professor Krell floated down the aisle, checking that all 20 students were ready. His blue tentacles curled with excitement. Remember, he said, follow all facility rules without question. The specimens here are dangerous. Safety protocols exist for good reasons. The students nodded. Even Zindar seemed serious now. He sat with 3 other Altarians, their scaled skin shimmering under the ship's lights. Olivia reviewed her notes. For the presentation, she had chosen to compare the Rigelian acid crawler to Earth's bombardier beetle. Both creatures used chemical weapons, though in different ways. She hoped the comparison would be interesting without seeming like she was trying to prove Earth's superiority. The ship docked with a gentle bump. After passing through an airlock, the students entered a bright white reception area. A tall, thin alien with gray skin greeted them. Welcome to the CRF. I am Dr. Vex, the facility director. His voice was soft but clear. Professor Krell has told me much about your class, especially about having a human student. Dr. Vex looked directly at Olivia. His large black eyes showed no emotion, but she felt like he was studying her. Before we begin the tour, you must put on protective suits, Dr. Vex continued. Although you will not have direct contact with specimens, these suits have sensors that monitor your vital signs and alert us to any problems. Assistants distributed the suit's clear material that covered the body from head to toe. Each suit adjusted automatically to fit the wearer's unique body shape. Olivia's suit felt slightly warm against her skin. Your suits also have tracking devices, Dr. Vex explained. If we need to evacuate, follow the guidance arrows that will appear on your visor. Once everyone was properly suited, Dr. Vex led them through a series of security doors. Each door was thicker than the last. The final door opened into a circular room with viewing screens on all sides. "This is our control center," said Dr. Vex. "From here, we monitor all specimens. We can also control temperature, atmosphere, and other conditions in each habitat." He tapped a screen, and it showed a forest-like environment. Strange plants with purple leaves filled the view. Among them moved creatures that looked like six-legged wolves. "These are from Centauri 7, Dr. Vex explained. They hunt by sensing body heat through solid objects. Their teeth can bite through most metals." The students watched in fascination as the creatures moved through the alien forest. They worked together to surround a small, deer-like animal. The hunt was quick and efficient. "Now," said Dr. Vex, "let's proceed to Section 7. That's where the Rigelian specimens are kept." They followed him down a long corridor. Glass walls on both sides showed different habitats. Some contained deserts, others oceans or rocky landscapes. Strange creatures moved in each one. "Stay close to the group," Professor Krell reminded them. "Do not touch the glass or make loud noises." They arrived at Section 7. It contained a rocky landscape with bubbling pools of greenish liquid. Strange moss-like plants grew around the pools. The air inside had a yellow tint. "Rigel Prime has high atmospheric pressure and acid rain," Dr. Vex explained. "The plants have evolved to use the acid as part of their digestive process." He pointed to a clear bubble on one of the plants. Inside was a small creature, slowly dissolving. "The bubble moss traps prey and digests it over several days," he said. "Quite efficient." Olivia took notes on her tablet. The bubble moss was similar to Earth's Venus flytrap, but more advanced in its trapping mechanism. "Where are the acid crawlers?" asked one of the students. Dr. Vex smiled. "They're nocturnal. We'll dim the lights to simulate night on Rigel Prime, so you can observe their hunting behavior." The lights in the habitat slowly dimmed. As darkness fell, glowing dots appeared on the rocks. The dots moved, revealing themselves as markings on long, slug-like creatures. Their bodies glistened with slime that seemed to eat away at the rocks they crossed. "The acid crawler's slime can dissolve most natural materials," Dr. Vex said. "In their natural habitat, they use it to create burrows in solid rock." The students watched silently as the crawlers moved toward the bubble moss plants. Instead of attacking the plants, the crawlers began to feed on small insects attracted to the plants' traps. "A perfect symbiotic relationship," Professor Krell noted. "The crawlers get food, and the plants benefit from the crawlers keeping insect populations in check. Similar relationships exist on Earth," Olivia commented. She had not meant to speak aloud, but her voice carried in the quiet room. Dr. Vex turned to her with interest. "Yes, Cadet Martinez. I believe you are going to give a presentation on Earth comparisons." All eyes turned to Olivia. She stepped forward nervously. "The acid crawler reminds me of Earth's bombardier beetle," she began. "This beetle creates a chemical reaction inside its body to spray boiling acid at predators." She showed images on her tablet. The students leaned forward with interest. "While not as large as the crawler, the beetle's chemical spray is just as effective at smaller scales," she continued. "It's a defense mechanism rather than a hunting tool, but the chemistry is similar." As Olivia spoke, an alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed in the corridor. "Attention all personnel," announced a computerized voice. "Containment breach in Section 12. This is not a drill. All visitors proceed to emergency shelters immediately." Dr. Vex's calm expression changed to worry. "Section 12? That's impossible. The security there is—" A loud crash interrupted him. The whole station seemed to shake. "What's in Section 12? Professor Krell asked urgently. "Kaldorian specimens," Dr. Vex replied quietly. "Including a mature slasher." The students gasped. They had learned about Kaldorian slashers in class, apex predators from a Category 5 Deathworld. Everyone stay calm, Professor Krell ordered. Dr. Vex, where is the nearest emergency shelter? 2 corridors back, the director replied. But another crash, closer this time. The lights flickered. The primary specimen has broken through the first security door, reported a voice over the facility's communication system. It's moving toward Section 8. Section 8 is right next to us, whispered Myra, her fur standing on end with fear. Zindar moved closer to Olivia. Still think Earth creatures are comparable, human? He hissed. We're about to meet a real monster. Olivia didn't reply. She was watching Dr. Vex and Professor Krell, who were speaking quietly together. Both kept glancing at her dot, the suspicion she had felt before the trip grew stronger. This was no accident. Somehow, she was sure this situation was connected to her. But why would anyone deliberately release a deadly predator? Another crash echoed through the station. This time everyone could hear the sound of claws scraping against metal. The Kaldorian slasher was coming closer. We need to reach the emergency shelter, Professor Krell said, his voice rising. Everyone stay together and move quickly. The students formed a tight group and followed Dr. Vex back down the corridor. Their protective suits glowed softly in bedimmed emergency lighting. Olivia noticed how the glow made them easy to spot in the darkness. As they hurried, another announcement came over the speakers. Warning! The Kaldorian specimen has reached Section 9. All personnel in sections 8 through 10. Evacuate immediately. It's moving faster than expected, Dr. Vex said, his gray face paling even further. We need to change our route. He turned the group down a side passage. A new path was narrower, with pipes running along the ceiling. The sound of their footsteps echoed loudly. Why is this happening? Asked Mira, her voice shaking. Aren't there security measures to prevent escapes? Multiple measures, Dr. Vex replied. The specimen should not have been able to break free. We're investigating how. A loud crash cut him off. It came from directly ahead of them. Back. Everyone back, Professor Krell shouted. It's in this section too. The students turned and ran in the opposite direction. Panic spread through the group. 2 crystal-bodied students fell behind, their heavy forms moving slower than the others. Help them, Olivia called out. She ran back and helped one of the crystal students, while Dex assisted the other. The main corridor is blocked now, Dr. Vex said when they regrouped. We need to go through the maintenance tunnels. He led them to a small door and typed a code into the control panel. The door slid open, revealing a dark, narrow tunnel. These tunnels connect all sections, Dr. Vex explained. Staff use them for repairs. The slasher is too large to follow us here. One by one, they entered the tunnel. It was barely tall enough to stand in. Pipes and wires lined the walls. The air felt warm and stale. They had gone about 50 meters when Olivia stopped suddenly. Wait, she said. Something doesn't make sense. The others looked back at her. What do you mean? Professor Krell asked. If the slasher is too big for these tunnels, how did it get ahead of us to block our original escape route? She asked. It shouldn't have been able to move between sections so quickly. Dr. Vex and Professor Krell exchanged glances. Perhaps there are multiple specimens loose, Dr. Vex suggested. Your report said there was only one mature slasher in the facility, Olivia countered. And you specifically said the primary specimen earlier. Before anyone could respond, a new sound echoed through the tunnel, a low rumbling growl that seemed to come from all directions. It found us, whispered one of the students. Impossible, Dr. Vex said. These tunnels don't show up on thermal scans. That's when Olivia realized what was happening. She looked down at her glowing suit, then at the others. It's not tracking our body heat, she said quietly. It's tracking our suits. Professor Krell's tentacles curled in surprise. What are you saying? In class, you told us Kaldorian slashers evolved to hunt explorers, Olivia explained quickly. They detect energy signatures from protective gear. Our suits are like beacons to it. Dr. Vex's expression changed. He no longer looked afraid. Instead, he seemed interested. Remarkable observation, Cadet Martinez, he said. Few non-humans would make that connection. Another growl, closer this time. The students huddled together in fear. If the suits are the problem, we need to remove them, Olivia said. Absolutely not, Dr. Vex replied. The atmosphere in some sections may be toxic. We'll die either way if that thing finds us, Olivia argued. She turned to Professor Krell. You know I'm right. The professor hesitated and nodded. The maintenance tunnels have standard atmosphere. Removing suits is against protocol, but this is an emergency. This is absurd, Zindar protested. We can't trust a human's theory with our lives. But even as he spoke, more students were already removing their protective gear. Beneath the fear, Olivia sensed they trusted her judgment. Leave the suits. Here, she instructed. They might distract the slasher while we escape. Everyone except Zindar and his Altarian friends removed their suits. Dr. Vex watched, Olivia with an expression she couldn't read. Now what? Myra asked. We continue to the emergency shelter, Olivia said, but quietly. Without the suits, the slasher will have a harder time finding us. They moved forward through the tunnel. Olivia led the way, with Professor Krell close behind. Zindar and his friends stayed at the back, still wearing their protective gear. How much further? Dex whispered. The access point to Section 5 is just ahead, Dr. Vex replied. The emergency shelter is there. They reached a junction where 3 tunnels met. As they paused to determine which way to go, a screech echoed from behind them. It found the suits, Olivia said. We need to move faster. But before they could continue, another sound came from the tunnel to the right, claws scraping against metal. The slasher had somehow gotten ahead of them again. It's impossible, Dr. Vex said. How could it know where we're going? Olivia looked at the facility director suspiciously. Unless someone is guiding it. The accusation hung in the air. Dr. Vex's face remained neutral, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Suddenly, a scream came from the back of the group. Everyone turned to see one of Zindar's friends being dragged backward into the darkness. His protective suit glowed brightly as he disappeared. Run! Professor Krell shouted. They sprinted down the left tunnel. The sounds of pursuit followed them. Heavy, breathing, claws on metal, and the occasional screech. There! Dr. Vex pointed to a ladder leading up to a hatch. That leads to Section 5. Hurry. One by one, they climbed the ladder. Zindar and his remaining friends went last, their suits making them easy targets in the darkness. As they reached the hatch, Olivia looked back. A shape moved in the shadows, something large with multiple limbs and glowing patches on its exoskeleton. It was focused on Zindar, whose suit shone like a beacon. Without thinking, Olivia climbed back down the ladder. Martinez, what are you doing? Professor Krell called out. She didn't answer. Instead, she approached Zindar, who was frozen in terror as the creature crept closer. Take off your suit, she whispered urgently. What? Take it off now if you want to live. The creature moved closer, its multiple eyes fixed on Zindar's glowing suit. Olivia could see it clearly now, a massive predator that resembled a cross between an earth mantis and a panther. Its claws left deep scratches in the metal floor with each step. Zindar finally began removing his suit with shaking hands. But he was too slow. The slasher tensed, preparing to pounce. In that moment, Olivia made a decision that would change everything. She stepped between Zindar and the monster. The slasher paused, confused by the prey that gave off no energy signature. Olivia stood perfectly still, staring directly into the creature's compound eyes. Behind her, Zindar finally removed his suit. The slasher's attention wavered between the discarded glowing suit and the strange prey that showed no fear. "Go," Olivia whispered to Zindar. "Climb up, now." For once, the Altarian didn't argue. He moved slowly toward the ladder, then climbed. As quietly as possible, Olivia remained facing the predator, alone in the dark tunnel. Time seemed to slow as Olivia faced the Kaldorian slasher. The creature was massive up close, nearly twice her height when it stood on its hind legs. Its exoskeleton gleamed with bioluminescent patches that pulsed in the darkness. Multiple compound eyes studied her with alien intelligence. The tunnel was silent, except for the creature's breathing and the distant sound of Zindar climbing to safety. Olivia knew she should be terrified. The slasher was the apex predator of a Category 5 Deathworld. It had evolved specifically to hunt and kill, but instead of fear, she felt something unexpected, curiosity. "You're confused, aren't you?" she whispered to the creature. "I don't fit your hunting patterns." The slasher tilted its head, as if trying to understand this strange prey that showed no fear and gave off no energy signature. Slowly, carefully, Olivia reached into her pocket. The movement caught the slasher's attention. It tensed, ready to attack. "Easy," she said softly. "I'm not a threat." Her fingers closed around a small device, her personal tablet. All Academy students carried them. Olivia had been studying Kaldorian biology since Professor Krell's first lecture. She had theories about their sensory systems, and now she would test them. The slasher took a step closer. Its front claws scraped against the metal floor. Olivia activated her tablet. She had modified it to emit specific sound frequencies, ones that should affect the slasher's sensitive hearing organs. A high-pitched tone, inaudible to human ears, filled the tunnel. The effect on the slasher was immediate. It recoiled, shaking its head as if in pain. "That's it," Olivia whispered. "You can hear frequencies we can't." She adjusted the settings, making the tone stronger. The slasher backed away further. Its glowing patches flashed rapidly. A warning. Signal, Olivia realized. From above, she heard Professor Krell calling her name. "Martinez! The security team is coming." "Get up here now." But Olivia didn't move. This was her chance to understand this creature, to test her theories about Deathworld. Predators. "Your hunting strategy evolved to target explorers," she said to the slasher, still holding the tablet. "But that makes you predictable." The slasher paced back and forth, clearly agitated by the sound, but unwilling to retreat completely. It was adapting, Olivia realized, just as Earth predators would. "Cadet Martinez." Professor Krell's voice was more urgent now. "That's an order." Slowly, Olivia began moving backward toward the ladder, keeping her tablet pointed at the slasher. The creature followed at a distance, testing the boundaries of its discomfort. When she reached the ladder, she faced a dilemma. She needed both hands to climb, but couldn't drop the tablet. Above, the hatch opened wider. Professor Krell's tentacles reached down toward her. "Jump, Martinez. I'll pull you up." Olivia looked at the slasher once more. It was watching her, waiting for her to make a mistake. In that moment, she understood something profound about life on Deathworlds. It was a constant test of adaptation and intelligence. She leaped upward, grabbing Professor Krell's tentacles with one hand, while keeping the tablet active in the other. The professor pulled her up with surprising strength. As she cleared the hatch, she saw the slasher leap toward her. For a terrible moment, she thought it would follow her through the opening. But the sound from her tablet kept it at bay, just long enough for the hatch to slam shut. Olivia collapsed onto the floor, breathing hard. Around her, the other students stared in disbelief. "You're alive," Mira whispered, her fur still standing on end with fear. Zindar stood nearby, his scaled skin pale with shock. "You ... you saved me. Why?" Before Olivia could answer, a team of security officers rushed into the room. They wore specialized armor and carried weapons designed to subdue large creatures. "The slasher is in the maintenance tunnel, Section 4B, Dr. Vex told them. "Proceed with caution." As the security team moved out, Olivia noticed something strange. Dr. Vex didn't seem surprised by her survival. In fact, he looked ... satisfied. "That was an impressive display, Cadet Martinez," he said. "Few beings have faced a Kaldorian slasher and lived to tell about it." Olivia stood up slowly. "It wasn't trying to kill me. It was curious. It's used to prey that runs and hides in protective gear. I didn't either." "A fascinating observation," Dr. Vex replied. He glanced at Professor Krell. "Wouldn't you say this confirms our theory?" Professor Krell's tentacles, curled in what Olivia had learned was a gesture of agreement. "Indeed, the results are beyond our expectations." "What theory?" Olivia asked, suddenly suspicious again. "What results?" The other students moved closer, equally confused. Dr. Vex smiled slightly. "Professor Krell and I have been studying the relationship between evolutionary environments and intelligence. Specifically, we've been comparing beings from standard worlds to those from Deathworlds. You planned this?" Zindar asked, his voice rising in anger. "You deliberately put us in danger?" "Not exactly," Professor Krell said quickly. "The containment breach was accidental. But once it happened, we saw an opportunity to observe how different species would react to a survival situation. And your human student performed exactly as we hypothesized," Dr. Vex added. "She identified the threat pattern, developed a countermeasure, and even risked her life to save another." Olivia looked between the two scientists, understanding dawning. "This whole trip was a study. You wanted to see how a human would react to a Deathworld predator." "Humans are unique in the Confederation," Dr. Vex explained. "You evolved on a world that should have killed you. Instead, you became the dominant species through intelligence and adaptation rather than physical superiority. That doesn't excuse putting students in danger," Olivia said firmly. "No, it doesn't," Professor Krell agreed, looking genuinely remorseful. "The breach was never part of our plan. We intended only to observe your reactions to seeing dangerous species. When the emergency occurred, we should have evacuated immediately." A silence fell over the group as they processed this information. Finally, Zindar stepped forward. "I was wrong about you," he said to Olivia. "I thought humans were primitive and unworthy of respect, but you faced that creature without fear. You saved my life when you could have left me behind." "On Earth, we have a saying," Olivia replied. "The true measure of a person isn't how they treat their friends, but how they treat their enemies." 2 weeks later, back at the academy, Professor Krell stood before his xenobiology class. The field trip incident had caused a major review of safety protocols at the research facility. Dr. Vex had been reassigned, and Professor Krell had received a formal reprimand. But today, he was teaching again. The subject, Deathworld Psychology, the cognitive adaptations of survival. "The most dangerous organism in the known galaxy," he told his students, "isn't the one with the most teeth or the deadliest venom. It's the one that can outthink its environment, adapt to any challenge, and turn survival into both a science and an art." He gestured toward Olivia, who now sat in the front row. Around her were students of various species, including Zindar. No empty seats separated her from the others now. "The greatest predator isn't the one that relies on physical superiority, but the one that can observe, analyze, and problem solve," Professor Krell continued. Today, we are fortunate to count such a species among our allies rather than our enemies. After class, Zindar approached Olivia. "I've been assigned to the diplomatic corps," he said. "My first posting is Earth. I was hoping you might teach me more about your world before I go." Olivia smiled. "I'd be happy to. But remember one thing on Earth. Even our friends are monsters in someone else's story." Zindar nodded, finally, understanding the lesson that had begun weeks ago when a human sat quietly in a class about Deathworld monsters.